Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Monday, April 29th. We've got one more trading day of the month to go. Let's get to some of the price action today, which I thought was a little bit whippy. We had the Treasury funding announcement in the afternoon, but the market seemed to kind of shake that off a little bit. I don't know. To me, it didn't seem like that big of a deal, but I get the knee-jerk reaction when something when they talk about that they're going to need more money than what was expected for the Treasury. That kind of just adds to the pile of, I guess, new issuance that we're going to see in terms of bonds. A lot more supply still coming on the market today. Bonds were not were quite fine for the day. TLT was up about 0.8 of a percentage point. That, in my opinion, contributed to some of the more riskier areas of the market outperforming today. You could see clean energy stocks did well today. Biotech did well today, but there was a deal there, DCPH, which was the catalyst for some of the move in that space, and small caps were up and led today. So again, I think bonds having a little bit of an impact there. Breadth today was decent. The only thing that was a little bit of a concern was just the way that the market opened. The tick index was hot. When that's been happening, the market likes to kind of give back some of those early gains and kind of reset in the first hour. That's basically what happened for the day. So let's get to the technicals, because I think ultimately, I'll go through the technicals. I'll go through some sectors and a little bit of our watch list, and a couple trade what I thought was also what stood out for the day. So when we look at the S&P, this is something that, again, I write about in Substack, as well as a couple other places too, just putting levels to watch. And you could see this is something that I talked about towards the end of I think in Friday's video too. I talked about how we were going to have a test here, right? And the test is the bottom of the April value area. This is the channel that we were in. We broke into the value area, and then we really broke back on I guess that's April 15th. We broke into the value area, spent time trending lower, retook in the beginning of the week back above the 5-period moving average, but notice that we're coming into the 20 and the 50. So the indices are still below the 50-day moving average, which still means to me it's tough to kind of think about this in terms of bigger picture rather than what individual stocks are doing. But I think ultimately we want to see the S&P and the other indices get back into their value area, and ultimately back above the 50-day moving average. We don't want to see a failure here. So I think that with all the events this week, including the Fed meeting on Wednesday, right? I think that you're, and I can't really tell you what I think, or what's going to happen here, because it's a pretty big unknown. We're coming into a level, and we're either going to break back in, depending if the Fed is dovish, or if we get some really positive earnings reports, then we'll break back into the value area and maybe take back the 50-day moving average. If the Fed comes out and they're hawkish, right, then you could probably expect some type of rejection here. I don't think they're going to be super hawkish, but they could take a hawkish tone. Regardless, right? So this is the April value area, and as I mentioned, there's only one more trading day of the month. So I will be putting out levels for what the May value area looks like, which is again based on all of this month's activity. And then we will have, if we end up opening inside the value area for the month, I will give you that support level. And ultimately, like, that would not be a bad scenario, right? Do something like this back check into the new value area, and then ultimately start heading back up. That's one scenario that could play out. That seems somewhat likely. So but it's difficult now because you're kind of caught in the middle, right? So there's not a lot of edge, I think, right now in trying to determine where we're headed to. The other thing is too, and notice what happened there with this was the candle. So this is good. The market was pretty resilient on that and found some buyers on the dip, and we ended up right back to where we started for the week, which is just right above the value area. But look, I mean, we're just basically, there's a lot of chop there in the in S&P futures. Not much going on in terms of range, right? Qs, we'll start backwards here because I just have the 1 hour chart, but this did open up above the value area for the new week, right? The 1 hour chart, again, I know I repeat myself for frequent viewers, but the 1 hour chart and the value area is based on all of last week's activity. So 1 hour chart, that value area, the value area for this week is based on last week's. The daily chart, the value area is based on a month's data. So 429.86 is a level, and you could see this is a little bit stronger in the short term, right? Because we came in and just touched the bottom of the value area rather than breaking into it for the S&P. Again, here's where we are. Note that you have like a little bit more before you can go to kind of get to this bottom of value. That's another 70 basis points higher. But note we did just barely get above that 20-day moving average, right? And then IWM, which sometimes I refer to as the wild card, that is also still below the value area, still below the 50-day moving average, right? Here's the value area. Here's the 50-day moving average. 1 hour chart. Right, we did get above the value, or same thing, similar to the Qs. Check back there to the top of value, and so far fairly resilient, right, on that announcement. But again, a lot of events this week, right? Here's what we've got. Here's the economic calendar. So not only do we have this guy on Wednesday, 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock decision, and then 2:30 press conference, which to me is always more important because you get Powell's speech and then you get the Q&A, which sometimes derails the last hour of what you heard. But that Q&A is always very important. And then, you know, tomorrow you're going to have the consumer confidence. You're going to get the ISM numbers on the 1st. And JOLTS jobs openings. I mean, it's a busy week. And then on Friday, the monthly jobs report will be coming in. But again, I think the main thing in terms of economics is the Fed meeting on Wednesday afternoon. And then, of course, we've got a lot of companies reporting earnings too. So that's why I think it makes kind of logical sense that the market is kind of pausing a little bit to figure out like what the next direction is going to be. And you know, that could be on, you know, the some of the top names that we're going to get in terms of earnings this week. I mean, there's a lot. So earnings release, right, and top securities. Of course, you're going to get AMD tomorrow. We're going to get Apple, Amazon, and you know, other names like McDonald's, Eaton, which is one of my favorite names in the industrial space. So we'll see how that works its way out. But again, you know, those are the things to kind of watch, and like, again, it makes sense that where we are right now in terms of when the S&P. One other sector chart that I wanted to show you too, which I find interesting because it looks very similar to those other index charts. And I spent some time on Friday's video talking about the semis, but that is right smack into the bottom of the value area, right at the 50-day moving average. I think it's important to watch semis. You know, maybe they provide a little bit of a hint in terms of what the next direction could be. Sometimes they're more leading. All right, we'll go over a couple stocks and a couple other sectors, but Tesla was the stock of the day, I think. You know, such a big move, 12% on this announcement with China. Take a look at where this got into, right into the bottom of the value area. So this is going to be tough, I think, for Tesla. You know, and it's been tough. It's been a tough year for Tesla, but a rally right into the bottom of value. So how I use the value areas is basically to say, hey, you know, forgetting like what's happened in terms of like, you know, because what will happen is people will say on earnings, oh, I missed going long Tesla, or I missed the bounce, right? Well, let's concentrate on you know, what to do going forward. And I think if, you know, and this is a weekly candle, and today's just Monday, so you're going to need some patience here because the weekly bar won't close for 4 days. But I would really be watching this 190.60 level, right, to see if Tesla can really turn the corner and get back into its value area. Again, this is important because this value area represents on the weekly chart all of last year's volume at price activity. So it will become significant if Tesla can close above 190.61 by the end of the week. All right, so that's that. I mentioned I would talk a little bit about some sectors, right? So I actually did this did this watch list, put this watch list together, just to kind of give a sense of like momentum. I've done this a little bit differently in the past, but anything that says strength in it means that it's above the fifth. So again, like this is more short-term stuff, and it only looks at moving averages. It doesn't look, it's not going to look at anything else, and that's why we put it under a microscope using the value areas. But right now you've got consumer discretionary, which partly the reason for that was what Tesla did today. But you've got consumer staples, industrials, and energy, as well as utilities. Those are all above the 5, the 20, and the 50-day moving average. Now, let's examine a couple of these, and then we could look at some of the subsectors. Now, we already looked at SMH, right? So above all those short-term moving averages, but has to deal with that bottom of April value area. Let's look at consumer discretionary. Right, not a bad turn so far. That's a weekly chart. Notice the so even though inside day, I talked a lot about these inside not inside day, but inside candles. But that's how you want to tackle it, is to basically gap back above. And no, this is very nice because this got rejected a bit on Friday. But look at the move for consumer discretionary back inside the value area. And what I noticed, consumer discretionary covers a lot of areas, but really like this Abercrombie turn here. Right. And a lot of these, it's funny how these things, they move in groups a little bit. American Eagle had a nice move too, but I prefer Abercrombie. I tried trading American Eagle a few months ago, and it didn't work as well as Abercrombie. So I'm sticking to this one for now. But yeah, back above, this one did get back above the 50-day moving average and inside the value area for the month. So I think pretty good looking move there. A couple other names too that I was watching based on this is guess. It's just to kind of keep an eye on some of these other names that are similar. When you get a strong group, you want to look at everything that's going on in the group. Like Levi's is another name too, gets back above the 5-period moving average. Right. We talked about the restaurants. Wing is going to report this week. I did take profits in this today. A couple names for me, like, around the opening, or they rallied a little bit in the first half hour of the day. And I took profits, and I did this with Wing, and I did this with Palo Alto today too, which I've been holding a position for Palo Alto. I think I either bought it here, and then of course it went a little bit lower on me. So to get this to be a positive trade, I took profits in this. I took 2 targets right off the bat, and then I took the remainder of the trade off, even though it's still holding the 5-period moving average. It just looks like it's going to be a struggler. So I'll move on and kind of go to some other areas of the markets. XME. Right, so we'll look at this one too, back above those short-term moving averages. And copper had a big day today. I've talked about copper and copper futures. Where I think they're going to is to this version point of control, which is about 4.5% still to go. Again, it doesn't mean it gets there in a straight line, but that's the next area of really big overhead supply. That's 4.88 to watch in copper. But I've been long. I went long SCCO before they reported earnings. I took a couple targets, and then I kept the remaining position on. But that's a new high for this year for SCCO. Tech Resource. We'll go to FCX next, because that's the one that they really like to buy options in. This also really made kind of like a catch-up move. Nice move today, and that also gets you above this previous peak. The 2 other names, Tech Resources, saw a nice call buyer today, and this also a little bit extended here. This is, I put this in the midday note for members. And Alcoa is another one that looks pretty good. I did go long Alcoa. This was one of our weekend watch list names, and I just like that it's just starting to kind of, this little like bowl pattern. It's starting to kind of move higher, and you've got a virgin point of control about 6% above where it is. What's nice is in TradingView, we put the of course we've got the MarketWebs in here, but we've added some features like giving you the percentage up for the next version point of control. So it just makes it very easy to kind of plan, or easier to plan a trade when you know where your overhead supply is and how far away it is. Industrials, that's another one that I wanted to look at, which I'll do right here. right? And this also just barely got above the value area. Let's see what Eaton does tomorrow, even though I don't know if Eaton will really drive this. But, we've seen some really strong names, United Rentals, TSCO, which that's also a little bit, I think, a consumer retail, but that's another strong name. So we've certainly seen some industrials act pretty well, and it's nice to see that get back above. So again, relative strength, right? Instead of breaking down, right, this went back to the bottom of value and held that support, and is now trying to regain that short-term trend. So a good sign there, I think. Right, here's where your industrial movers, just so that you could see what's going on here. We'll talk a little bit about breadth in just a second, but XLI and then the movers for XLI. Right, Boeing had a good day. Carrier, that's another name that had strong earnings. Nice move there. Caterpillar has been inching up since they reported earnings. Paccar should be interesting. They report tomorrow morning. I saw some puts go up in that one. GE had another nice day. That's the name that I got long last week on a dip. That one dip day last week, which was right in here. Which is where I got long, and that's been moving up. Again, I've been taking profits in that one, and fully I'm okay to add if it starts to break a little bit lower. All right. A couple other names. Google, I started a position in this, but I mentioned it was a buy the dip move, but it just kept on dipping for the rest of the day. And this 5-period moving average, like, prices like to kind of come in after there's been a decent move. Sometimes it's a 2 or 3 day move. In this case, it was just a 1 day move for Google, but price likes these moving averages to catch up. So I would watch for the price and the moving average to catch up. If that happens, I'll add more to my starter position. But I thought this being down over 2% on the open was an opportunity. And what I said as I added this position, I'm just kind of legging in and starting a position in this one. All right, market breadth, which I took this snapshot earlier. This is coming from our Substack. I send this out daily just to kind of see new lows versus new highs. Now, this was taken earlier, so it might be a little bit different, but not a lot of big differences here. Only 31 new highs versus 18 new lows, right? That's different than what we've seen, where just small numbers in general. So again, I think a little bit of consolidation going on, and you can kind of see that under the hood when we look at the overall breadth. All right, guys, that is it. I was going to here's also our watch list that we put together. You could see a lot of green, so we picked out some pretty good names here. I'm not going to go through them all, but we post all the chart setups for members Sunday and Sunday night, but that's off to a pretty good start. Of course, I mentioned one of the better ones in here, believe it or not, is Abercrombie. I don't think a lot of people have that one on their focus list to come into the week, but looking pretty good. All right, guys, have a great night and hope to see you in the trading room, and see you tomorrow.